Let's talk about the climate. And I don't mean the zeitgeist, I mean that climate. What percentage of the atmosphere do you think is CO2? And it is CO2, carbon dioxide, not carbon. They keep saying carbon. It's not carbon, it's carbon dioxide. What percentage of the atmosphere is carbon dioxide? It's 0.4%. What percentage of that carbon dioxide is produced through human activity? Guess. 0.04%. There was a time on the planet called the megaflora, megafauna era, where we had at least 400 times more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and the planet thrived. Now, if we try to take out all the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, what's going to happen to plants? Because plants, through photosynthesis, take out carbon dioxide, and using sunlight and a pigment, not a molecule as somebody once told me, a pigment, what's going to happen to plant life if we go to net zero carbon dioxide? Like, there'll still be some natural carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, but if we take out the tiny percentage that we want, that our leaders want to take out, well, it might reduce the yield of crops. Then you add to that they want to reduce the amount of nitrates in fertilizer. What's that going to do to the crop yield? Then you add to that the insane proposition, and this is in mainstream media, that we dim the sun. What's going to happen to plant life if we reduce the amount of CO2, if we reduce the amount of nitrogen fertilizer, and if we dim the sun? And they want us all to go to a plant-based diet. Are you seeing where this is going? This is not possible. There are other ways of farming, yes, and it doesn't have to be so intensive as the way it is today, because we produce more food than we actually need. And just on January the 3rd, 2020, we were at our closest point to the sun in 12,000 years. That's called the Milankovitch cycle. And we're actually moving away from the sun at the moment. We're actually moving away from the sun. And the sun is going through a period of very, very low activity, what's called a grand solar minimum. What that means is that there's fewer sunspots, fewer CMEs, coronal mass ejections. The sun actually plays a huge role in our climate. Yes, the climate changes. Over vast periods of time, the climate changes. When these so-called scientists, climate scientists, come forward and they say, oh, the hottest year, blah, 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 they conveniently start their measurements usually in the 1980s, something like that, and they forget about the 1920s and the 1930s, when we had some of the hottest years on record, some of the wettest years on record, some of the coldest years on record, some of the driest years on record. So what they do is they skew the statistics by taking a starting date that suits them and leaving out the previous decades. It's a con game. The whole thing is a con game. All this information can be found on the internet. People, you have access to information like you've never had access before. It's time you started thinking for yourselves. Go away and look up all the things I just said, and you'll find they're all true. I just find it astonishing that so many people allow themselves to be fooled, to be conned like this. And what they do is they use children, and it's the children who need to wake up. They used Greta Thunberg, or whatever way you pronounce her name. In Syria, they used a little boy in the back of an ambulance. They used a Twitter account called Syria Girl. They use children to preach to adults. Children know nothing. Children don't preach to adults. The adults need to start being adults once more. Go look up all these things for yourself. Ciao.